Good morning. Welcome to this devotion. I'm George Fuller, the pastor at Wendell Christian Church. And we just share each Wednesday a short devotion that's intended to encourage us. And I'm trying to focus on some of the things that I'm looking at in my own devotional life and passages that I think are easily accessible for encouragement and the kind of wisdom that we need in these days, really any days, but maybe in particular these days. What I'm doing now is going just kind of phrase by phrase through Psalm 23. And we've just had one devotion in Psalm 23, but I'd like to start each week by reading it. I'm reading it out of the New Jerusalem translation, which especially in the Hebrew scriptures, the Old Testament, is my favorite. And it preserves the different names of God. Many times when we read English, we just think there's like one word that references God, but in actuality, in the Hebrew scriptures, there are many words that reference God that really collect all the characteristics of God. And the one that embraces everything of God, that points to everything of God, is the word Yahweh. And so within our tradition, Yahweh is the one true God. And we spend our whole lives trying to comprehend God and learn how to live inside of that reality that God is God and we're not, and we are loved by God and we are in the life of God in one way or another. So that's the word Yahweh, sometimes translated I am the I am, but it is the one true reality we're part of. Let me read Psalm 23 and then we'll focus on one phrase. Yahweh is my shepherd. I lack nothing. In meadows of green grass, he lets me lie. To the waters of repose, he leads me. There he revives my soul. He guides me by paths of virtue for the sake of his name. Though I pass through a gloomy valley, I fear no harm. Beside me, your rod and your staff are there to hearten me. You prepare a table before me under the eyes of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil. My cup brims over. Ah, how goodness and kindness pursue me every day of my life. My home, the house of Yahweh, as long as I live. Last week, I just talked about the phrase, Yahweh is my shepherd, and really each week I'll start with that because the context of Psalm 23 is not someone who's watching the news and panic stricken and in a troubled situation and trying to decide how to control everything. David, this king, is having in this psalm a moment where he's put his life in perspective. He's not the king in this psalm. He's the one who is and belongs to Yahweh, who is in and belongs to Yahweh, the one true God, and who is, and at least in this moment, it's obvious in his life he chose not to do this in many instances. But in this moment, he's saying, I want to be the one who follows the shepherd who is Yahweh. And he worked with sheep. He was a shepherd himself. And so he has great meaning in his mind when he says, the Lord is my shepherd. But this phrase for today is, I lack nothing. What we find is that in our culture, and I'm kind of sad to say, even in our Christian culture, we have the idea that if we're not getting what we want, if things aren't going well by our analysis, then we are lacking something. I want to say that again, that if things aren't going the way we want them to go, or we aren't getting what we think is a good thing or a pleasant situation or good outcomes, that we are missing something because the situation is bad. And I think it's really important to admit that situations can be bad. I think it's very important to remember that yesterday when I went to the doctor, I was not finding out how to flip a switch and make everything perfect that the doctor was investigating, but to find out really where I was and then find the resources to deal with it. And I think we would do well. We would give ourselves a huge gift if we would realize what is being said in this song. Yahweh, the one true God who is love, is always with us. And when the one true God who's always love is with us and we cooperate, we realize that we lack nothing. We don't lack everything to never die because we're mortals. So we are all on a trajectory that will include dying and transitioning into the life beyond this life. We're not living in a world where there's no troubles. In fact, the Apostle Paul says the troubles you're in are common to everyone. When my wife was battling cancer, we went to the chemo treatment room and we made good friends and found out there were a lot of people in the same troubles we were in, same anxieties. They also had kids they wanted to see grow up. They also had dreams they wanted to fulfill. They also had all the struggles of facing cancer and the treatment of cancer. I wish I could help myself in the times I forget, and I wish I could help us all remember Jesus said, in this world you will have tribulation, but be of good cheer, for I have overcome the world. And David is tapping into, even though it's just a potential and a partial way, he's tapping into Jesus Christ because Jesus Christ reveals Yahweh, reveals the one true God. And the one true God says, I'm going to be with you in this world of tribulation. Not I'm going to be with you and you won't have any, but I'm going to be with you. And what if Yahweh and cooperation with Yahweh, and what if when we cooperate with Yahweh, we actually have everything we need to get through every difficult circumstance? I think that's precisely what David is acknowledging. And when David was having his good days, it wasn't because nothing bad was going on in the kingdom he ruled, because if he would take time to look, there would always be troubles in the kingdom that he ruled. He's recognizing that with Yahweh as his shepherd, that he will have with Yahweh and in harmony with all those who also follow Yahweh, the ability to have everything he needs to get through what can be good days in our minds and bad days in our minds, but always days where Yahweh is our shepherd. When Tammy was going through cancer, I often had in my mind as I was praying, why don't you just cure her rather than working out the friends that show up, and rather than just cure her instead of arranging for all the things that I coordinated or friends coordinated or whatever. And it would be simpler, God. Wouldn't it be simpler if you just fixed her? And then I realized that that's precisely God saying to me, the way my world works is when you all work well together. I do not fix my world without you choosing to love. I cannot fix your soul without you choosing to acknowledge and receive your grace, the grace I have for you. So Yahweh is my shepherd. Yahweh is our shepherd, and we lack nothing. And when we cooperate with him, we heal. When we cooperate with him, needs get met. When we cooperate, that is the life of Yahweh being manifested in our lives. And I pray that we would not only remember, but that we would manifest, that we would become the experience of a shared life in Yahweh, which means we all love God, Yahweh, with all our soul, body, mind, and strength, and we love one another as ourselves. We lack nothing. May it be so in us and among us. Amen.